everyone. Welcome back to But Why the podcast. I'm Kate, and today we have a very special Castlevania-focused interview with Sam Deats and Adam Deats. Hey,
I'm
guys.
Sam Deats, the director of Castlevania.
Hi, and I am Adam Deats and the assistant director of Castlevania.
And this leads me to my first question, because I want to kind of set the stage for all the listeners, because I feel like a lot of the times, a lot of people don't even have like a solid grasp on what live action directors do. So I wanted my first question to be, can you walk us through some of the responsibilities and how is an animation director different from live action, or is it not?
I have never done live action, and I don't know anything about how live action is made. That it's just all wizardry, but that's probably what they think of animation as well. The process is basically we work with the producers and the writers and all that kind of stuff to look at what's been written. We start drawing characters, designing the world, all that good stuff. And my role as kind of the series director is kind of the scope of the whole show and the look of it, and the general way that the characters are designed and everything. And then I work with the team under me, and Katie Silva being the supervisor character designer since season 3. She's kind of taken over on designing the characters a lot of time after I kind of established things with the first 2 seasons. And from there, it's translating the scripts over to storyboards, and those storyboards into animation, and then finally that animation into the final composite and edit. It's a whole lot of drawing is probably the
I mean, Sam, would you say that you kind of act almost like a art director plus storyboard supervisor in a sense? Like you're not the official storyboard supervisor, but you do storyboard oversight essentially.
Storyboard oversight is definitely a big part of the job. But the every production's a little different, and I'm kind of involved with every step of the production. So starting with the visual development of it, and setting the look and all that stuff is part of my job, all the way through to I'm especially this latest season been heavily involved with the animation itself, and less involved with the post-production compositing. That's more Adam's thing. And, as he can tell you, I jumped in at the very end of season 4 to try and help out with compositing. And I helped a little, maybe, but I think I also made it a few things a little harder as well. It's more Adam's
forte. Yeah, I mean, I would say that on my end, what my primary duties are is that in the very early beginnings of things, I'm the animatic and storyboard wrangler in a sense. I'm taking all the storyboards and turning them into animatics essentially. And I actually, these days on season 4, I actually don't have to do as much as that as I used to, because in seasons 1 and 2, I was the only editor on the project. And then finally I woke up and I was like, I'm an idiot. I need editors. I can't be the only one person doing this. And so we have other editors now. On this season, we had David Howe. He's done wonderful work. But I still kind of do oversight on animatic creation, and making sure that everything hooks up sequence-wise, everything feels okay, everything's timed out okay. David obviously does a ton of that work as well. And I kind of carry that process over to post-production as well, where I do post-production oversight, where I'm ensuring that there are sometimes a lot of finicky problems that come up on the editing end and the storyboard end that transfer over to the final post-production process. And so we do additional editing and oversight there in post-production. And on top of that, I do oversight on just color grades and special effects work and et cetera, and transfer that to the compositing crew so they keep moving. And also do compositing work on my end if necessary. And I'm pretty heavily involved with just storyboard work in the sense that if there's something that I feel like is missing, then I'll give notes on a certain thing. Typically, I'll stay out of the early storyboard notes phase, but on occasion, something big might come up. So, like for example, in season 3, episode 9, I actually had a lot of say, and I had a specific vision for the moment where Isaac rides up the in the city state. He rides his horse up the mountain, up to the tower to get to the wizard. That Legion's existence in there and the way that was supposed to visually feel and stuff was a lot of me in the background. Although Amanda Storey aboard that sequence did an amazing job with it.
Yeah, Adam's job is much more kind of technical in a sense, because he's looking at everything that we're doing. Number one, editing it, but also figuring out the technical aspects of making sure that it gets done. And this is a project that has a lot of very complicated technical issues that, while we kind of create for ourselves, but then also wants to bring to life. So there's a lot of just creative problem solving that's going on in the background that typically is filtering through Adam as he's looking at everything that we're doing and boarding. We're trying to figure out, okay, so should this go through the animators? Should this go through how would we handle it on the compositing side of things, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's, hearing the sheer amount of work just in y'all's roles, what brought y'all to Castlevania? Because you all have created something immensely special, and every season has gotten a little bit longer than the last. What brought you all on this journey? Like, what got you all? I guess like the easiest way is, why Castlevania?
Well,
a lot of luck.
Definitely luck. Yeah, it's funny because Kevin Coldy, he acquired the rights to do an animated Castlevania something way back in the mid 2000s, I think. And back then, I had just gotten, barely finished school and started at Powerhouse and all that kind of stuff. And the project wasn't really getting off the ground because back then it was going to be a direct-to-DVD movie, and direct-to-DVD stuff was starting to die out, etc. And the show got its second life like 10 years later when Netflix originals and streaming was doing originals and stuff like that. And that's when we kind of came in, because by then we had been more firmly we'd had years of experience in the animation field. And I remember seeing a news article that this project was coming back to life, and I jokingly told Brad, the CEO of Powerhouse, I was just like, hey, we should work on that. And I didn't expect anything to come of it, but Brad was like, well, I know some people at Frederator, and I'll poke around and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, for context for this, by the way, we had been very lately poking around for, and I say we, the studio as a whole, have been poking around to get series work for years, and it just always fell through.
Yeah, and this being something, a property that me and Adam have loved since we were kids, and as well as being leaning towards an anime style and all that was the direction that we wanted to go in and all that kind of stuff. It just was something that really spoke to us. So we shot our shot, and it just happened to fall into place. And after going back and forth with Kevin for a while and kind of talking to him about what we bring to the table, we did drawings and sketches and all that kind of stuff, sent them over, and it just happened to land on our plates, and we had to figure out how to make a series.
And out of that series, I think one of the things that I have found made, because I've played a few Castlevania games, but I wouldn't say that like I'm a major like Castlevania game fan. What went into making this animation, this series, like really accessible? Because I feel like a lot of the times with adaptations, it's hard to please both crowds, right? It's hard to hit the fans that are existing. It's you know, while also bringing in new folks. And I feel like Castlevania has kind of struck that really good balance and has found its place amongst both crowds. Like, was that something you all had at the forefront as you were developing the series, or did it grow over time?
Gosh, I feel like it kind of happened on its own to an extent, just because the writing is very adult. You know, it's talking about adult themes and things that matter to anybody, really. I think young adults, older adults, etc. And I think that also, on top of hitting the video game crowd, we're also hitting the anime crowd just visually. You know, on top of that, so I hate to say it, but there's just a lot of people that really love Richard Armitage's voice.
Yeah.
We really hit that mom segment of fans really, really well. They just love that guy. And so I think there's just a lot of really good working parts.
Yeah, I think that, well, I think going in from the start, it was always the goal was to make something that anyone could walk in and watch. And it wasn't something that um, uh, required any prior knowledge. And I think that that's also something that happens to be inherently beneficial to the property itself, because you're dealing with Dracula and you're dealing with vampires and you're dealing with monster hunters. You don't need a whole lot of information walking into it.
Yeah,
Also,
there's like decades of lore already there.
yeah, and for a long time, this was kind of like the beginning of the story for the universe until Lament of Innocence came in. This was kind of like, okay, the Belmonts were pretty much starting from square one, and everything was growing from what was built here for the rest of the timeline. And so it really was like, Kevin picked Castlevania 3 for a reason, and that was it has all this lore that ends up carrying over to the later games that start here. And I think that was really a big selling point. And so, yeah, I just think that it was something that we wanted to make sure anyone could walk into. It was inherent to the property, and it was a decision right at the start that it just happened to be something that you can enjoy regardless of whether or not you play or care about games.
And I think coming off of that, one of the things that really struck me, especially as an anime fan, as a game fan, as you in general, all the fandoms I'm in, and also being a brown woman, the diversity in Castlevania, like y'all have increasingly gotten, you all have increasingly avoided the largest issue that happens in fantasy stories, which is, the lack of, visually diverse characters. And I wanted to ask, like, especially with Isaac playing such a big role in season 3 as well, really getting to know him. Was this something, the diversity of the characters, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase this. Apologies. But it's something that is really floored me, is the attention to this and making sure that every character has a wholeness to them that doesn't feel like they're just there for set dressing. So did you have diversity in mind as you were building out everything, or did it also just kind of fall into place?
It was kind of something that it was, I suppose, in the back of our heads, but it also just felt natural, is the best way I could put it. Because it was something that we wanted to make sure that this world just didn't feel like it was, or the story didn't feel like it was just focused on this one tiny little place and group of people. This is a worldwide event that was affecting everyone, and therefore you're going to have people from all walks of life that are tied to it and affected by it. And so it was, an active decision to start bringing in, especially at this as season 2 and then season 3 started coming in, bringing in characters from various walks of life and various parts of the world. And so yeah, it was a natural part of the storytelling, as well as, you know, in the back of our head, yeah, we wanted to make sure that this wasn't just uh, uh, a story with a bunch of white people running.
A very pale vampire show, like many of them end up being, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's a
100.
common trap to fall into.
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, and I'm thankful for that. And hearing you kind of talk about how, you know, there's involvement in overseeing a lot of the character design. I think one of the things that like I've praised Castlevania for in my reviews is the character designs themselves of one, man, everybody is attractive in this show, y'all.
That's
like
the Castlevania thing. It's got to be that way. Like you know, ever since Ayami Kojima was on board doing art for it, there's been nothing but beautiful men and women. And so that's just kind of the thing, right? That's just like the sort of like shtick for it. And so of course we stuck with that.
Yeah, that was a fun thing to try and jump in and absorb as I started developing the look of the show at the very beginning. It was like really absorbing Ayami Kojima's aesthetic and understanding it, but also kind of like getting it to work with the tone of the show itself and finding that balancing act there. And yeah, you know, making everyone gorgeous. It was kind of part of it.
and I did also want to ask too, like, because you have these gorgeous characters, you know, long eyelashes, you know, lipstick on point, for a lot of those vampire ladies, but it's also filled with so much gore and so much creative monster designs that really like straddle that line between like, ooh, this is kind of grotesque, but also this is really cool looking. What goes into kind of striking that balance between like gory and beautiful at the same time?
Oh gosh, that's a good question.
God. I feel like I think we feel like we in a sense we've accidentally ended up there because we like to have fun during battle, you know, battle scenes and whatnot. We're also obviously trying to hit horror notes for certain kinds of sequences, depending on what they are. And that sometimes comes packed with a certain level of body horror, right? And I think that a lot of time we're not even taking it that seriously, the gore part, just because it's all in the fun of the combat sequences, right? In other instances, the horror element's supposed to feel as horrific as possible, obviously. Juxtaposing that with beautiful people, I don't know. It's one of those things that anime's been doing for a long time, right? You know, like they have this very this very obvious, clear view of that juxtaposition happening for a long time.
From that, one of the other things I wanted to ask as well is, as we move into season 4 and we kind of look at where the characters were and where they are now and where they're going to end up, everybody's gone on such a phenomenal journey. Like, of course, like Sypha, Trevor, and Alucard have, but like so has Isaac and so has Hector. Although I would like him to be a little bit happier, please. But I just somebody needs to give him a hug with like love and meaning. But that's besides the point.
That's what everybody wants, and I can't tell you whether we're going to give that to you or not. You're just going to have to wait.
But is there any particular journey that has been, you know, really important to you guys as crafting? Because I mean, I will say, like, when I reviewed season 3, I was genuinely blown away by how much characters had changed and yet still felt like themselves and felt like they grew instead of became somebody different.
Yeah, I mean, that season 3 is, I would say, in a sense, some of these characters' lowest points. But on the other hand, Isaac is kind of on his way up. Right? Yeah. He's learning some things about himself. And there's a parallel there where characters are moving in opposite directions. And that's kind of the point of the season, is there's a lot of change happening. You know, that season was all about, what does the world look like without Dracula there? Is it even any better? And we found out a lot of particulars about that.
Yeah, I would say that certainly crafting Isaac's journey was an especially satisfying part of building season 3, and then I'm looking forward to y'all seeing where it goes with season 4, and continuing to develop on Trevor and Sypha's relationship and their journey has been a lot of fun, and then it's
God, it's hard because like for me, all of it matters, right?
yeah.
Like I don't think there's not a single like character arc that doesn't matter. It all
Yeah.
matters as being.
There's a lot of payoff coming, and I can't really say too much other than that.
No, all good. I think from that point too, like one of the things and one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you all, especially with, the final season coming up, is Castlevania's come on like a really big journey. And like, I can only speak from a fan's perspective where, it's gotten increasingly longer. I remember waiting at RTX when it screened for the first time, like way back when, and how long that took just to get in and how excited I was once it was done. And I wanted to ask you all, like, did you all know that it was going to have such an impact on pop culture?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. In fact, Sam will tell you that we were like, everybody's going to hate this. It's horrible. Oh God, what are we going to do? Oh no, have we screwed up? Maybe we screwed up.
Like rewinding. Like we were proud of what we worked on, but this was a video game adaptation.
Yeah.
No one likes video game adaptations. That was the rule going in, and so we kind of just were like, oh, well, I mean, we did our best. We did put our all into it. We are crossing our fingers, and
it's up to the audience at that point.
We're proud because we had learned so much doing like working on it, and you could tell that like everyone involved was like, I don't know, and shrugging their shoulders just before it came out, and we were hoping that we were going to get to make a season 2, and everything was getting planned out and all that kind of stuff. We were like, we may not have jobs in a little bit. We don't know. And then it goes out and it explodes, and you're like, what? And you even kind of start seeing it with the teaser that came out beforehand, and then the trailer came out, and everyone was losing their shit, and there was millions of people watching these teasers and these trailers and stuff, and we're like, are we gonna be okay? Does this mean that we did it? And we absolutely had no idea that it was actually going to take off, and we were just so nervous because this is our first time working on a series, and this was we were stumbling so much with that first season, trying to figure out how best to make these things, and it's completely different how we run our show these days.
I don't, and we've that. We've improved so much, but like I can tell you with certainty that the anxiety never goes away. Every release, you're always just like, are they gonna like it? Even though all we did was release a poster and there were like 75K likes on it. People obviously care about this a whole lot. It's just one of those, it's just the nervous artist problem. That's all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that has really kind of struck me with Castlevania as a series is I feel like there are these larger elements that are like paying homage to like really big horror representations of like vampire lore and all this stuff. But also it's a very unique look at vampires, vampire hierarchy, and all this stuff, and all of that stuff as well. Were there large influences that you look to when kind of crafting all of those elements, and whether it's monsters in general, the magic, or the vampires, like what piece is really inspired building out? Because world building's real hard and you all do it real well. So I kind of wanted to know if there were any inspirations or any pieces that you saw and you're like, no, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it better.
Gosh, I feel like so much that's in the writing and it was kind of built for us. So I wouldn't say I would look at anything directly, but I would say that and Sam, I don't want to speak for you, but like it feels to me like so much of that stuff, especially all the in-court drama that happens with vampires, just feels like, you know, real world politics to a degree. All the bickering and the infighting, and just the fact that it's like it's childish a lot of time politically.
Yeah.
So that's the feel that I got from it.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as the visual design and everything that we're looking at, in a similar way to how Castlevania games like to look back at very very old lore and folk tales and everything. Sometimes we have liked to kind of dig through those old folk tales and everything and find new nuggets that haven't necessarily been explored, whether it be in Castlevania or it be in it, you know, it, something common that you might have ran into in other shows. And so that's kind of like a fun way that we draw inspiration for doing something that's at least a little bit unique, is digging through these old uh, uh, descriptions of you know various characters or creatures, and doing a new spin on it. And then other times in the same inspiration of how Castlevania looks backwards towards those old folk tales, we'll also look at contemporary horror, more recent games or movies or etc. that inspire us and pay homage to those things. And so the method has been largely kind of following the original intent of what Castlevania has always been. It's been cramming together all these different horror creatures and franchises and stuff from way back when, and finding new places to kind of pull inspiration from, and that's something that we've tried to continue in the show in that regard.
Yeah, it's flabbergasting, by the way, that we managed to do it at all, given that Castlevania is basically Indiana Jones plus Dracula mashed together. Like, pretty hard thing to work with, really, as a foundation. But
random guy with a whip,
yeah,
kills Dracula with it. Yeah, it doesn't
scraped by, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say that's kind of, that's our spin on it is continuing that tradition, but finding new spins on it.
Yeah. The battles, because holy moly, there are so many giant battles and intricate battles.
You're telling me.
As a viewer, I'm just like, oh my God, this is awesome. But I'm assuming they were very hard to put together.
I am sick of crowd scenes. Sick of. I don't want to see another crowd battle in my life. But yes, they're very difficult. I would say all the crowd sequences, the battlefields with lots of crowds, are very, very difficult to do as a whole.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of 3D, characters or anything like that. We look over at anime and a lot of like big crowds and stuff like that. They usually do cell shaded 3D these days, and we haven't really jumped into that. The only thing that we've done is Legion, the big ball of bodies, is our first kind of foray into quote unquote 3D characters, and it was not even 3D the whole time. A lot of the time that was all hand drawn and horrible. Some of the most expensive shots in the show are the ones that we ended up doing hand drawn because we just didn't feel like the 3D was holding up, and so that's super hard. And unfortunately, what you saw in season 3, in terms of how much action and battles and stuff was is barely anything compared to what we've done for season 4.
Oh my gosh.
Season 4 has by far been the toughest, most complicated season in that regard, and I'm super proud of everything that we did. But gosh, it was tough, and yeah, it's crafting these is very complicated because on the you have a few different things going on. Uh, you have to storyboard all of that, and that is time consuming in itself. But then you have to figure out getting it all animated. And I have certain, standards that I like to meet when it comes to animation. You see the Sakuga kids online that all, you know, they post this amazing animation stuff like that, and that inspires us. And that's what we want to, that those are the standards that we want to meet. So I'm very hands-on with the animation side of the show, and so whenever we finish an episode, the first thing that I do is go through, or whenever we finish the pre-production of an episode, I should say. First thing I do is I go through all the shots and I decide, okay, who's going to animate these? And we have our outsourcing partner that we work with in Korea, Tiger Animation, who handles the majority of the show. But we like to hand pick animators and then have our own internal staff of animators that I think is a huge part of what makes the show visually what it is. And so I go through and I pick out, okay, this run of shots that needs to go over to, Tam Lu, who is, this one of our amazing animators here in house. And y'all are going to get to know a couple of our other animators, Josh and Garrett, this next season, and as well as dozens of freelance animators that we work with. And that's I go through and I decide, who's going to be working on all those, and we ship out those shots to these individual handpicked animators, and then give them feedback directly and drawovers and etc. And that's a big part of, I think, how we get the show visually to where we want it is handpicking animators, sending shots out to them, giving them direct feedback, as well as doing a lot of animation ourselves. In season 4, I personally worked on at least 300 shots. I'm not entirely sure where the where the final tally was, and there's a lot of our other amazing animators were doing dozens, if not hundreds, of shots themselves, and then I think that is a big point of pride on our point is how hands-on we are with that animation, but it's also extremely difficult.
Yeah. And I guess that wasn't my final question, because now I can't believe I didn't ask this one. Why did you all choose this style? And I mean, and it makes sense because I am very vocally on Twitter, pretty much a Powerhouse Animation stan, as because I love everything that comes out from Powerhouse. But it is very much anime at the end of the day. Like when we do our top of lists all the time, we always Castlevania always gets included on animated and anime lists. What was, I guess, the choice for this style in general?
So the when we went into making the show, I think everyone kind of had this idea of looking at Ayami Kojima's work and drawing inspiration from it when developing the style. But we did kind of, play around with style development and try out a few different things. And I'm going to plug the art book that comes out later this year because that actually has some of that style development that I don't think has ever been released into the wild. And you can see some like really funny, like early Trevors and Cyphers and stuff that look totally different from the style of the show. And that was just kind of like, well, okay, this show seems like it's going to be really hard to make. Let's try out simpler styles. And we kept coming back around to being like, no, that's not really right for this show. Trying to simplify the designs and everything, because as soon as you start pulling out some of the shading or some of the line work or you pluck out those beautiful eyelashes and so on. It just doesn't really feel like it has that um, gothic Bishonen aesthetic
Yeah.
that you see from Ayami Kojima's work, and what you expect. And we really wanted to get into that vein, into that feel that you get from like Berserk and stuff, dark,
Yeah.
and doing doing really simple character designs. Unfortunately, for how freaking hard it is to actually animate and everything, it just doesn't. It actually, I think, just it hurts how you end up absorbing the story and the characters and everything. It just doesn't fit.
Well, that's awesome, and I'm awesome in general that just matching it to Kojima's work and finding that balance, because it works. And I have posted many a thirst tweet for all of the characters in Castlevania, so
you wouldn't be the first, that's for sure.
Well,
Endless parade of it.
I don't when going into the designs, like I don't necessarily think of it in those terms. I just kind of do what feels right, and
yeah.
it just also be what everyone is thirsting after.
Yeah. Well, I think kind of what you mentioned, which I hadn't even thought about it till you mentioned it, was the Bishonen element to all of these characters. Like, I hadn't even thought about that, and I love that aesthetic. So that's a really interesting layer onto it, especially with.
You look back far enough, and you can kind of connect the dots between what was inspiring Ayami Kojima when she was a developing artist early on,
Yeah.
and how that kind of moved into what we're doing on Castlevania. And yeah, you look back far enough and you got a little bit of that Bishonen work. Some of her early work really absorbed a lot of that. And,
Yeah.
on top of her work, there was obviously trying to, make, like I mentioned earlier, making it work with the tone of the show as well as animation. And there's obvious just influences that have affected us over the years. And if you look close enough, you can see my love for the old Capcom artists and stuff like that. Kind of slipping in, and that was where I was kind of at before Castlevania, was various like Capcom artists and comic artists and stuff like that back in the day, as well as the influences from all the projects that I had worked on before then. Kind of getting crammed in through the lens this particular aesthetic that we were trying to land.
Yeah. With everything ending, is there anything that you want fans to take away from Castlevania? Because as much as it is like a giant fantasy, action-packed, beautiful people, packed vampires doing all these things, there are some really big themes packed in too, across each character arc and each person. And is there any particular thing that you want people to take away from the finale and the series as a whole, or something that you all have taken away from it?
I think that's hard to talk about because without season 4 coming out, you know what I mean?
Well,
it's almost like spoiling the themes that present themselves in season 4.
I'm gonna go out on a limb, Sam, and I think I can pose this in a way that might work. There's been continuous cycles of violence that have happened in the show for a while. And there's also been a central theme about reformation, whether that's like a worthwhile thing to ask of people, whether someone can reform and come back to our side on a thing. And that's what the season's about thematically. It's we're gonna hopefully maybe answer that question, or leave you up with a bunch of questions and maybes.
that was my last question. And honestly, I do want to like thank y'all for the work that you've put into this series and really bringing it to life. Like as a fan, I always have a hard time when I do these interviews because I'm like, oh my God, I just really like this property. And also I want to have a real cool interview. But I want to thank y'all for the work you've done, the time you've given to me today. And
Thank
I
you so
guess
much for having us on, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm sad
yay.
that I guess we can't yammer on longer. Well, it's funny because for the first time in 5 years, in 5 long years, we are actually on a break. Like
Yeah.
we're in between projects more or less, and it's actually like very chill. I'm catching up on errands and medical appointments that I had woefully fallen behind on during the past 6 months trying to finish up season 4, and for the first time we don't have the overlap that you see between seasons, stuff like that, which is really just the worst time period in any production because you're trying to deal with the post production on a new season while you're or on the previous season while you're dealing with pre-production on the next, and it's it's so difficult. And for the first time, we're just kind of on a real vacation without thinking about what's happening next and what's going on and all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank y'all for the time today. I will now officially wrap the interview. But as we transition out, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you all, how they can support the show, what are the best ways to, keep up to date on, maybe new trailer drops or anything like that as, everything happens.
Just want to say thank you to you, Kate, and to all the fans out there. And please watch the show, as early as possible from when it gets released. This is especially this season is I think it's a spoiler heavy season, and I really hope that people manage to watch it without getting spoiled. So please, try to watch it as early as possible, and please be respectful about spoilers, everyone, and hashtag Castlevania spoilers or something like that, so that everyone can kind of go into this season fresh. Please, watch the show and buy the buy the Blu-ray and the art book that's coming out. Art book is huge. It's really really exciting for us to see all this artwork he's done over the past 5 years crammed into one place, and that all really goes a long way to help us continue making great things.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for everything. Really appreciate the interview. Thanks to the fans. Keep watching. This season's going to be dope. I hope you like it. And stay horny out there, okay?
Adam Deats, what do you do?
Look, that's just the way they are. You know that.
I would just like to say that I personally appreciate the license to be horny on main given by a director on the show.
Look, I wouldn't say it's like my view, but it is the view that they have taken on, and thus I support their view. Okay.